All right, so in the last video, I mentioned that we're starting a whole melodic development, improvisation, playing off the changes, chromatic melody development course. So this is the second lesson. If you haven't seen the first lesson and you're interested in developing this, you can go back and watch the first one. And I'm also going to include all of these in a playlist. So if later on it seems like you missed something, you can always check out the playlist and see what the chronological order is, because everything's going to build. So if you jump in 5 lessons in, it's going to not be as beneficial to you as if you start at the beginning. All right, anyway, now we're getting into the second part where I take a phrase and I show you how to alter that phrase. So in other words, one lick can become 7 licks, and those 7 licks can become 7 more licks just from one idea. So in other words, what I'm trying to do is take one little melodic phrase and we're going to develop it like crazy. So you're going to get a ton of mileage out of one idea instead of having to constantly come up with a bunch of different licks all the time. You don't want to be thinking about licks, man. You just want to play, and you want to get the most out of a small idea that you can possibly do. So that's kind of where that territory we're hanging out in right now. So the first lesson was to get that chromatic scale down. Now in the book that I said I'm working out of, I start with a major scale, melodic minor scale, whole tone scale, diminished scale. All you got to worry right now in this area, this territory, is the major scale. So that's it. I'll get into the other stuff later on and I'll tell you why. But right now, let's just stick to the point. So you got the major scale down, chromatic, the Barry Harris approach to that major scale. That's step 1. Step 2 is now we're going to take a simple idea, and then I'm going to show you that idea, and then I'm going to show you how to alter that idea. And then I'm going to show you how to hang that idea on every degree of every chord tone so that one single idea becomes 7 new ideas. So you can get the most out of it. And then I'll show you how that blows up even more. It goes, one little idea starts like that and then goes like that. So you'll see what's up in a minute. Okay, let's get into it. So this is page 2 of a chromatic approach to melodic development. If you don't have the book, you can get it on Amazon. And if you do have the book, just check out page 2. This is where it's from. But otherwise, I'm going to put the PDF on the screen, and then I'll put it up on Patreon if you want to download a hard copy. So, okay. C major 7. So we did the scale. Now we're going to start building ideas. So the first idea on the page and on the little strip that you can see, up a third, up a chord. And by up a third, I mean doing the scale, doing the Barry Harris scale. So up a third, we're connecting thirds. That's the point. And we're doing it with the Barry Harris thing. That's why that Barry Harris scale is so important. So up a third, let's say I start on C and I want to get to E. Here's up a third. You know? C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. I'm connecting C to E by way of the Barry Harris scale. So instead of just, now it's, okay. So that's up a third. And then it says up a chord. And what I mean by up a chord is we're just going up in thirds. So you could think about it as an arpeggio. But what I really want to do is think about hearing what that sounds like. So this is a chromatic sound. It's a half-steppy sound. This is a scale kind of sound. This is a bluesy kind of sound. You know what I mean? And then you want to hear arpeggios kind of like, I think people get too hung up on arpeggios rather than what they actually sound like. You want to hear things in thirds. This is a sound. It doesn't sound like this. Or it doesn't sound like this. But it sounds like thirds. And is that an arpeggio? Yeah, technically it's an arpeggio. But what I'm trying to do with this whole melodic development course and kind of everything that I'm doing with teaching is to zero in on how your ears work and what this actually sounds like being the most important thing. And then you can go back and call it whatever you want to call it. It's a D minor arpeggio. It's an E minor arpeggio. It's the 5, 7, 11. Who cares? Whatever. First, start with your ears, then go back and worry about theory. Don't put theory first. Not that theory isn't important. It's super important, but ears are more important, and they're more important up front. Get your ears down, and then the theory's easy. But if you get the theory down and you try to get your ears tight by that, shit, forget it. So now what I want to do is I want to take this first idea, which is over C major 7, and it says up a third, up a chord, starting on the root. So up a third means getting from one scale tone to the next scale tone a third away. Might be a major third, might be a minor third. Either way. And then we're getting there by way of the Barry-Harris scale. So we're doing that chromatic approach to the third. So when I say up a third or up a fourth or whatever, it's the scale motion, ascending or descending. And then up or down a chord is arpeggiated, or we're moving in thirds. So let's do the first one. B sharp, D sharp, E, G, B, D. And then you can resolve it if you want. Or, you know what I mean? You can just build stuff. So I'm going to show you how to do that later. That's just a quick example, but let's get back to the point. Up a third, up a chord, starting on the root. And ordinarily this would be a lick, right? Somebody played this. Or up an octave. If you resolve it. All right? And then you would move on and get on with your day. But I'm going to show you how to take that and blow it up all over the C major 7 and how to alter it and how to make it fit. So now the next example is up a third, up a chord, starting on the third of C major 7. And again, we're going up it's not going to be literally a cut and paste copy. You got to alter it a little bit, but it's within the bounds of the chromatic scale. So check it out. If we start on E and we want to get to G, a third away, in this case, it's a minor third, we're just doing the Barry-Harris scale. E, jump up to G, F, F sharp, G. So this is why you got to know that Barry-Harris scale really well. If you do know it really well, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, and this is jamming you up, you need to go back and get that tight. It's super important to get that tightened up. E, G, F, F sharp, G, and then G begins our up a chord part. G, B, D, F. So now the whole thing is this. That's based off the third. E, G, F, F sharp, G, B, D, F. And then you could continue on to another phrase, or you could resolve it down to a target. So that's a different idea, even though it's the same idea. You know what I mean? That sounds like one extended thing, like one long thing, but it's really just one idea. Now let's start it on the fifth. So if I wanted to do this idea off the fifth, I would get, which is G. I'm trying to connect G to B. Another major third. So we go up the Barry-Harris chromatic scale. G, G sharp, A sharp, B. And then B starts our ascension in thirds. B, D, F, A. So the whole thing would be and then you could, there's all kinds of things you could do with that. Okay. So, and don't worry about that part. Don't worry about turning it into other things. I'm just showing you where this thing can go a little bit. So we started on the root. We started on the third. We started it on the 5th. Let's try it on the 7th. We want to go up a third, so we want to go from B to D, a minor third away. Up the Barry Harris scale, though. B, D, C, C sharp, D. That connects the third. And now we go up arpeggio, or up a chord. D, F, A, C. So the cool thing about this is thinking about up a chord from wherever it is you're starting in the scale. It's kind of a natural way without a bunch of theory, where you're doing superimposing. So technically, this would be a D minor 7. Like I'm playing over C major if I want in this case. But by the time I get to this D, I'm superimposing a D minor 7 over C major. But I'm not having to think about it. It's just musical. And that has implications in what it sounds like, and active and resting and color and definition and all that stuff. And I'll get into that later. But all I'm trying to say is, by approaching things this way, it's more about getting the sound in your ears. And then you can worry, like I said, you can worry about it later. But you're superimposing without having to think about it. You're superimposing without having to take some big, fancy class about superimposition. And you could impose D minor or F major or F minor 7 flat 5 over the... Who cares, man? Just, it's this over this. So whatever. So one more time, here's what the idea is built off the 7. B, D, C, C sharp, D, up a chord, F, A, C. Okay, that's off the 7th. Now let's do it off the 9th. We'll start on D, connecting D to F. D, D sharp, E, G, F. Starting on F, we go up a chord, F, A, C, E. So the whole thing is... Okay, that's off the 9th. Now let's do it off of the 11th, F. That's the natural 11. And we can start phrases on the natural 11, but we don't want that natural 11 on major chords to be a target tone. We don't want to end a phrase on that. It gives you a minor 9th, and that's the whole thing. I'll get into minor 9ths and all that. So as you'll see in a minute, I start phrases on F, and then I start phrases on F sharp. And there's some minor 9th issues, and I'll explain that later. Let's just get into the 11th for now. Think about it as a C sus 4. So starting on the 11th, we want to get to A. That's a third away. F, F sharp, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B, E, G. So again... Okay, so you'll see in the book too, I drop it down an octave because it starts getting out of range. So that's the 11th. I'll bring in the F sharp later. That's a different conversation. That starts getting into 11ths on major chords and dominant chord. Yeah, like I said. So I'm going to skip that. Okay, now let's do the 13th, A. And I'm going to start it here. Okay. Connecting a third, A to C. A sharp, B, D, C, up a chord, E, G. So now you take this one idea, which was C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, G, B, D, and you can do it anywhere. Ninth, 11th, 13th. And that's just over C major chord. Now here's the other thing that I can get into a little later. I'm not doing that in this lesson. I just wanted to get to a little bit of review on the first lesson, show you how to build one idea, up a third, up a chord. That's it. That's all you got to think about. Practice that all over the place. Practice it from every degree of the C major chord. Think about it in terms of how it relates to the chord. Don't think about it in terms of scale patterns. And I'll tell you why scale patterns suck later. That'll be a whole other thing that I'll get into. In a nutshell, scale patterns suck because they're all about where you're starting instead of where you're going. You don't want that. So hang this idea. This is how you hang ideas on chord tones. Play this on the root. Play it on the third, fifth, seventh, ninth, 11th, 13. And you can see how you can take this one phrase and alter it and mutate it to fit where you're starting on the chord. Not only can you do this on the C major 7 chord, but you can do it from any chord built out of the C major scale. So you can take every single one of these ideas and you can hang them on all of the chord tones of D minor, E minor, F major, 7, G7, A minor 7, and B minor 7 flat 5. All of this will work over every single one of those. And now this one little germ of an idea has blown up into all kinds of ideas that you can hang on every degree of every chord tone that shares this scale source. So I'll get into a lot more of that stuff later, but this is enough for now. So just work on up a third, up a chord, and work first just on one chord tone at a time. Don't do it in scale pattern. Don't start on C and then go D and E and F. Build it up. Like I said, you don't want this to be scale patterns. You want this to be relative to the chord tones. You want to think more about where you're going and not where you're starting. So these phrases end up leading somewhere. And I guess that's it for now. And then I'll start blowing this thing up some more next week. All right, later.